How many of you actually thought we were going to talk about Trump's policy? Exactly. That is why, if you would see it, but you can't, interdimensional beings. Now, I have a PhD in metaphysics, but I can tell you I have friends in this room that are probably more alien knowledgeable than I am. My focus is on self and self-realization. But when you leave, you'll see how that ties into the talk. Okay? I apologize. I had a thing sort of, to show you, but when there's certain things I want you to see, I'll flip it around. That being the computer. All right, so with this Lemurian stone, I go into the Akashic records. That's what I do. And when we got, we own a store, so we get stones, and we got a Lemurian stone, and the name Lemurian just caught my attention. So we had to figure out what we do, what makes it different. They have messages. So with this one, the first day I tried to download in our pyramid, I received the message, do not seek truth, for you are truth. Seek that which resonates within and allow the vibrational frequency to shake all the other away. Okay, so with that, when I give talks, I always tell people about the spaghetti test. If I say something, remember when you throw spaghetti, if it sticks, it's ready. Okay, well, if the spaghetti falls for you, that's perfect. Okay? But if it resonates, there's something there. Now, the conservation of energy is a term in quantum physics that you cannot create nor destroy energy. Energy only transforms. And this is all going to feed into it, trust me. Okay? What you don't see is a little thinking man, but I'll let you know when those appear. The thinking man was a note from me to you to just think on. That's it. All right, so how many of you heard the term omniverse? Okay. Multiverse. So we don't really exist in a universe. Okay? The exopolitical dimensions in addressing a multiverse consist of known physical universes and multiple parallel universes based on extraterrestrial and hyperdimensional intelligent civilizations. Within this is source. Source, God, divine. So, credible evidence. Okay, this is credible. There are numerous day and nighttime sightings that cannot be explained. Now, what I didn't have are any pictures of aliens and YouTube videos, because you can do that. I'm just letting you know. More than 3,500 military and civilian pilot reports, with many collaborated with radar. You have hundreds of unclassified documents now. And you have hundreds of first and second hand person accounts. Now what I won't get into a lot of is abduction. Because boomerang, since the early 50s, we have had our own, quote, aliens that we built that do things like the abductions. All right, this is from Dr. Stephen Greer. Why would we do that? How do you keep order in a society? Fear. Now, metaphysics exists all in this building. So you have ghost over here and you have spiritual over there. They all are in the same umbrella. If you were raised like I was, Southern Baptist, and if you're still Southern Baptist, I am not bashing you. That's your choice. But it was a religion I was raised in of fear. So fear is a big key to this. All right, so the intent here is I will not interfere with your free will. I'm not going to tell you to believe or not to believe. That is your choice. And those who know me know I'm very paramount that I do not interfere with free will. Okay, but I want to try and open your awareness. You know, in the military we had a saying, the mind is like a parachute. It's best when open. So I just want to open the thought process. Okay, so maybe realign you, and I did use that word specifically, realign you with a new paradigm, a way of seeing things. But don't forget the spaghetti test. All right, so I really want to show you this because I really think it's cool. It's this cool design. Just stare at the little gray or green box, whatever, and you start seeing things move, right? It's an illusion. So, no matter how intelligent a person is, they can't see what they don't know how to see or they are ready to see. Do you know that on the electromagnetic spectrum of light, that humans see 0.0036% of the entire spectrum of light? That's it. And yet, we continue to say if we can't see it, it's not real. So, here's another picture. I just, here we go. Look, I like doing this. So much fun. All right. Anybody see? You don't have to see the close-up, but see the differences. All right, so we have normal vision, infrared. And so all this was is to show you that there is always more to the picture. Remember that saying, there's always more than meets the eye? You know, one thing I want to do one time is I want to go on the records, and then, there's all these sayings throughout time that have lasted. There's a deeper meaning to them, in my opinion. All right. That's not the thinking man, that's the smartest bit. All right, doubting Thomas. Many of us will probably say, I'm not a doubting Thomas, and yet we are. We doubt. We don't see it with our own eyes. We doubt. I always tell my son, trust but validate. Right? So, what's the belief? According to Abraham Hicks, the belief is a thought that you continue having. That's it. So now, thinking man, where did your belief start? Is it your belief, or were you raised with that belief? Mark says program. Not this Mark, this one. All right, so remember, a belief is a thought you continue to have. And that's it. Do you ever know the word lie isn't the word belief? I'm just saying. All right, so again, we have a tendency to only see or only believe what we see. So with that, one must see. But sight creates perception. Perception creates opinion. Opinion creates belief, which creates Maya, which is the illusion of self. So, my perception's an illusion. That's all I'm saying. That's the thinking man. I'm not. So if we only believe what we see, then we wouldn't believe that these were all painted by a blind person. And yet they were. So sight is sometimes overrated. You ever notice when Jesus spoke of the eye, it was always the singular eye? And when no eye, could have been the third eye? Did Jesus really make a blind man see? Was the blind man impaired, or did he open their consciousness? Did he open the mind? And that's all I'm trying to do, is to open a new way of thinking. 1947, you break it down into the Pythagorean scheme, you get the number 3. You go down, look at the number 3, it could be past, present, future. Many things happened in 1947. Okay? In the early part of 1947, you had one military general depart the CIA for a rear admiral to take their place. you had Truman putting out executive orders on the U.S. government. Anyone who works for the government has to have allegiance to the government. Then he put out 2 days later an executive order on loyalty. In June of that year, there was a sighting of UFOs at Mount Rainier, Washington by a pilot. Right. We all know what happened in July that year. Roswell. Another thing that happened that year is that the Air Force broke away from the Army and became their own. Israel was given their own land, and the United Nations, construction started to be built. I'm not going conspiracy on you. I'm just saying. Beginning of that year, there's executive orders that if you work for the government, you will have allegiance. The Roswell crash, the military took over. The DoD civilians, which is Department of Defense, are all government employees. Oh! The CIA was established. And yet, there had already been 2 previous directors of the CIA. Because the OSS was disestablished in 1945. Then you had the Department of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and so on. All that in the year 1947. So you're building a very militaristic government force, who now, by the order of the president, have to be loyal. Okay. Do not fall for Hollywood's deception. Okay? One of the things that I didn't mention in 1947 was what they call the Hollywood 10. And there was more than that, but it was, we had this big fear of communism. So for Hollywood to get any type of intel, you couldn't be against. It's not like today where, there's a political thing going on, and then you get to Hollywood, they're always, all of a sudden they become politicians and so forth. No, this was different. So if you notice, back in those days, all the movies dealing with UFOs or aliens were scary movies. Do you know, it's funny, President Reagan is one of 2 presidents that before taking office actually had seen a UFO. During the screening of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it is on record that he leaned over, or like leaned back and said, if only they knew how real this was. The other was President Carter. How many have heard the Arecibo, I may be saying it wrong because I don't speak Spanish, the Arecibo message? Arecibo, anyone speak Spanish? Is it Puerto Rico? 1974. 1974, SETI with Carl Sagan sent a message from Arecibo, Puerto Rico to M13. M13 is in space, deep space, but there's like literally, it's in the Hercules constellation. With a bunch of stars, thousands of stars. Now, the problem was, well, I guess not a problem, it's really hypothetical. Because it would take, in those days, their estimate, 25,000 years. Because remember, Interstellar had not been made yet. So we, as the public, didn't understand the illusion of time-space concept. But it would take 25,000 years to get there. So it was more of a technological demonstration. But there were messages in this 210 byte, which created a visual. I should have hired someone just to do this. All right, which is this little thing down here. This is actually a visual. I want to see if. All right, so this is the visual of the 210 byte. The first, can you guys see it in the back? Good enough?
Good
All right,
enough.
wing it.
Yeah.
It's the Arecibo message. All right, so the first is the binary code. You know we got binary code from I Ching? Yeah, I just learned that, so I thought I'd throw that out. Useless knowledge, but you know, if you ever get asked in Trivia Pursuit if that game's still around, you're gonna win that. All right, then the second line was DNA. It was the elements for DNA. Then the third were the nucleotides as included in our DNA. And then it breaks it down into the double helix and how our DNA does. And then it says, hey, we're human. And it's got our constellation, Earth being the one at the top. And it's got a telescope. And then another binary message. So that was in 1974. 27 years later, Hampshire, England. I know y'all are going to say, crop circles, and again, what you're not going to hear in this is anything from ancient aliens. I love this show. But what I don't like about ancient aliens is they never tie a spiritual piece to it. But guess what happened in 2001? Two crop circles appear outside of an observatory. You know what? I'm going to need this. In Hampshire. You all see that? Okay, the one on my left, your right, is a response. To the one in 1974. But you know, if you watch certain shows, you'll see that this is really two old farmer dudes in England that do this. All right.
With a stick.
Yeah, right?
No, to.
Don't be fooled again. Who sings that?
The Who.
Thank you. It's funny. See, we call Mark Martian Mark because I'm Mark. And we have a beauty in our store because all the Marks that come. All right. So what we have, all right, they address the binary. The one on my left, your right, is just a picture of what was in the crop in the field. Then it breaks into the DNA. But then it talks about the nucleotides of the DNA, and notice that the actual DNA structure is a little different. Then instead of a human, you've got this like alien looking.
Which side is the crop circle?
The one would have been that side.
That side.
Then you got the little alien looking guy there instead of the human, where ours was a human. And you got the constellation or the solar system they're in, which is different than ours. And then what they actually replied with was similar to another crop circle that had appeared earlier. Now it may be the two old guys. You know? I don't want to be a doubting Tom. But then we got the wow message, which is even earlier. All right, the wow message is from 1977. Mark, if I say the wrong date, let me know because I'm winging it. It lasted 72 seconds from a deep part of space. Now granted, it's been hard to replicate. And there have been people say it was asteroids going by. Well then, wherever the scientists got their PhD that caught the wow, they should decredit the school, because I am sure that an astronomer understands what a passing asteroid sounds like. But it was 30 times stronger, the signal. That was in 1977. Has not been debunked. Say again?
Something in it?
No, it was, you can look it up, it's like a high pitch. Then we have, and I'll flip it around when I get done, this was the round robin. It is a declassified document from July 8th of 1947. And I'll just read what it says. Okay. Part of the disk carried crews. Others work under remote control. The mission is peaceful. They are contemplating settling on this plane. The visitors are human-like but much larger. They do not come from a planet as we would use the it's more of an etheric planet. Now these are words in 1948 that probably a lot of people didn't know what was going on, but this is in the declassified document. This was the document that was submitted. It goes on to talk about this possess a type of radiant energy or ray which will easily disintegrate any attacking ship. You know, that reminds me. Why is it that spiritual people understand as above, so below, and yet cut it off there? It just popped in my mind. They can enter, they can re-enter and depart the etheric field on their own whim, which would be easy for us not to be able to see them. So the region they come from is known as Lokas or Talas, which are Sanskrit words, which is deep out there. I put a little Texas to it because that's where I got educated. So instead of giving you it, I just say deep out there. You can look it up. Cannot be reached by radio, so forth. So here's a copy of the actual document. And what I had done was in red as to what I just kind of read over. They come in peace. Have you ever thought how the two weather balloons / UFOs in Roswell crashed? I mean, here it is, these two UFOs doing this interstellar travel, and they get right above New Mexico and crash. The air base in New Mexico right there was the only air base at the time that housed the fleet that dropped the bomb. According to Dr. Greer, it was our EMP technology with our radar system, which, hey, you know, we're just like, oh, we don't have that. Tesla discovered Bluetooth, and we're just now using that. So your smartphone is just a step above the telegraph. You know, what we think is a lot of technology, a lot more already exists. So the theory is that we brought them down. And they were there, you know, because you ever wonder why all these sightings started after World War II? Because we took something that should not have been weaponized, and as the humans we are, very destructive in nature, weaponized it. Because you can also look at the hundreds of times UFOs or sightings have actually shut down nuclear missiles. It's just their show of force saying, we can do this. Because as humans, everything that we come across, we try to figure out how to make it a weapon. Yes?
So when we try to think of them traveling, we go, oh, 1,000,000 miles an hour, that'll take them 7 million years to get here. They don't do that, right? They're able to manifest.
Well, yes, there's some able to manifest, there's some that travel. It's just we can't okay. We think linear. And so we're actually limited. It's almost like to define the Creator. I don't believe we have a vocabulary to cover it. You know, everybody can come up with an idea of God, or the Creator, the Divine, the Source. But for me, I don't think we have the vocabulary to define it. Once you define something, you've negated it for everything it is. So with that, I don't think we understand how it's done, but that's a good concept of how it's done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like in Stargate or...
Yeah, there are stargates, but I mean, this is what, with this one we're about to get into the meat of it. Well, and it's not the meat, it's my point. But wait, there's more. It's kind of like one of those infomercials. The Vatican connection. And then if you ever what, there's this book called Exo-Vatican. Talks about it, but anyways. All right, so the Vatican chief, and it's dated, Father Jose Gabriel Funes. Just as we consider earthly creatures as a brother and sister, why should we not talk in extraterrestrial brothers? And then only one of many statements, the Vatican astronomers confirmed a belief, the discovery that may be made in the near future of alien life. Monsignor Corrado Balducci made news when he said ETs were actually already interacting with Earth and that the Vatican's leaders knew about it. So, thinking man, is this the methodical plan for the Vatican you know, aligning with the disclosure. I don't know. Then you had American research astronomer, Jesuit religious brother, director of the Vatican, came out with that they would baptize aliens. Aliens would be the savior of humanity. Now a lot of religious people are probably like, oh my God, it's replacing whomever, but it's not. It's awakening us to a more loving way. Because you know what's funny? You walk through here and we talk about oneness. And yet we are a hyphen epidemic society. We're African American, Irish American, Mexican American. We're anything that separates us from our source. We are all searching for the Maya, the illusion of self. Remember I told you, I'm into self-realization. Separation is based on fear. There are only two paths in this life you can take. One of love and one of fear. Because everything, every emotion you feel is going to fall into either one of those categories. But yet we talk about oneness when we're a bunch of xenophobes, which is that we fear anything that's different. You know, we only have so many states that allow homosexual marriage. Because they're afraid. And so, for you to be afraid of aliens, so let me ask you this question. How many believe that you're a spiritual entity having a human existence? By definition, you're an extraterrestrial. An extraterrestrial is anything not of Earth or from Earth. We are not of this planet. Everyone raises their hand, but not everyone believes. Not everyone believes that, remember the conservation of energy. Everything is energy. Has everyone heard of the raw material, law of one? David Wilcock's real big. It's like a 5-book series, was channeled from LL Research in the early 80s. The reason it's called law of one is because Ra, who's the existential consciousness, which is a group of people or conscious entities. Everything comes from one source. So here we are, we all believe, yeah, we all come from one, we're all preaching oneness, and yet aliens, interdimensional beings, either A, don't exist, because let's face it, in the omniverse there's like 50 sextillion planets, which is like 5 times a large number, 10 to the 22nd. But we're the only one with life on it. And the Earth is only 10,000 years old because it started with Genesis, which, oh, by the way, is almost like the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, you know, it's things to think about. I just say, thinking man, that if you are in that boat, the two cannot exist. That within your own self, you have a duality paradox. Duality is in a frequency, give me a good word for tantrum, doesn't, you know, they don't go together, harmony, in third dimensional reality, which is here. So when you get beyond other dimensions, yeah, there's duality, but they're in harmony. So to believe that we truly are one, and yet they truly don't exist, or that they're evil, can't coexist. Because then you're not embracing the theory of we are really one. It's more Maya. Because think about it. When they talk about fractals, and a mandala is a great way of explaining fractals. Because all the little designs in the mandala, when they're connected, you know, colored and stuff, you got this beautiful piece. I believe we're all fractals of one. But when they talk about fractals, they talk about infinite energy. And if everything has energy, then everything truly is connected. You know, Abraham Hicks says that your non-physical part of that became physical, but the majority of you is still non-physical. Meaning, you know, 'cause I've always believed that if your entire spiritual entity came into the body, it would explode. I don't think everybody's going to hold it. Where I went with that, I don't know. It just popped in my head. I'm a Gemini. My wife said that happens sometimes. All right, so I'm going to show you these. This is a list of countries. You don't have to read them all. Just look. Notice there are lists there. A lot of them are allies. What you don't see is the United States. This is a list of countries who have came out stating that interdimensional beings exist. Now, I'm not getting into the dumb, deep underground military bases. I'm not getting into Dolce and how we hybrid and all that. Because, I mean, you know what? That's fear. If you want to live in fear, go research it. Some great reading. I'm more about, you know what? Our true essence is love. It is. And we're no different. We may look different. But think about the history, the perceived history, of course, of our own planet. And what happens when people look different. Even today. And see, you know, they say that we're the ones we're waiting on. I follow that up with, then what the hell are we doing? Are we waiting for another incarnation? Or are we waiting for someone else to say, you know what, this is wrong? Just because something's different doesn't mean, you know, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And if you believe that, well then talk to some ghost hunting people. Okay? You know, and if you look at the Fermi paradox, the Drake equation, these are all scientific mathematical equations about the probabilities. And you're like, well, probability doesn't give me an answer. Right. So you're still stuck in a Newtonian ideology instead of an Einstein-Tesla energy ideology. Newton is like what you have medicine, so it's very static. It doesn't look at you as energy. Because in quantum physics, it's based on probabilities. In the Akashic records, when it talks about the future, it's possibilities and probabilities. But there are still mathematical equations that explain how, you know, it's damn near impossible for nothing else to exist. All right, see this like drawing that maybe, you know, might remind you of, you know, when you were a kid, I don't know, maybe only I did it, but you know, you took the colors and you made this, and then you covered it in like black crayon, and then you take a pen and you like, and it had this cool looking design. All right, what you see is basically 6 billion light years thick, and it's only, where is it? 1/20th of the night sky. But look, there's like billions and billions of freaking galaxies there. I use the word freaking because we're on videotape. My wife would yell if I used any other word. Plus, I wouldn't use that word. I'd use biscuits because that's my word that I use when I'm about to lose it. All right, so I'm just saying. All right, so space.com in January of 2013 stated 100 billion alien planets fill our Milky Way galaxy. My God, that's a lot. We thought there were 9. Then we found there was 8. And then we found there was more. Anyways. Now, Extreme Tech, 2 months later, basically said the same thing. So I take you from our galaxy back to the 56 sextillion. And by the way, I mean, I said it's this large number. All right, so basically the equation goes from where that 5 is on the second line to 5 times 10 is supposed to be a little 22 up there. That's the number sextillion. It's a lot of dang planets. Now, I didn't get into parallel universe and all that. That's all fun stuff, but it's not what we're trying to say. All right, so how many remember this? I'll just hold this and click. This is really cool. Remember this?
Yeah.
Headlines, 1976. What?
I've just heard it.
Oh, okay, all right. Check this out.
Expensive a lot.
Face,
What is that?
The Face on Mars, a comic book from 1958. Damn, it looks so close. I'm getting excited here. So, this is 1958. How'd they know? Now, this is like a series.
It was
they did.
77 or so.
No, this was 76,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was 58. The comic. you are getting to see somebody cool, bro. All right, so this is from the same series. And he says, you know, he's pointing to a planet between Mars and Jupiter, but there isn't any such world. And of course, the guy thinking here is a lot smaller than everybody else. That's from the 50s, but you know what? 2006 series, which is between, well, you know it, Mars and Jupiter, is acknowledged as a dwarf planet. Wow. That's some Anunnaki junk right there. I had to throw that word out because I was always going to go, where's Anunnaki? But, oh, here's more. Look at this. Historical art. UFOs and historical art. But remember, UFOs don't exist. They were only in art 800 years ago. You just look this up. Sorry it's not up there. Then we got, of course, you know, the whole Washington flyover in 1952. Now this is what I like to talk about because, you know, way to fool us. How many of y'all seen the hologram Tupac Shakur not too long ago? A few years ago. Looked real, right? So I have two ideas that may happen one day. One, there'll be a big one of Jesus in the sky to scare you at the second coming. Or two, there'll be a bunch of UFOs. Von, what the hell's his name? Von Braun. Werner von Braun. Have you heard of him? Father of NASA. Okay. You understand Operation Paperclip? Operation Paperclip was that we took all of the massive, knowledgeable German Nazi scientists and wrote everything away for them to come work for the U.S. He was one. Because they were far more advanced in rocketry than we were. So, in 1974, as he was being ready to transition, he told his assistant to promise him that they would make sure this doesn't happen. Because he said the way the Pentagon war machine will keep funding themselves, there are four things. First will be Russia. In 1974, we had the Cold War. He said second, they're going to go with terrorism. Third, asteroids, and then laughed and said fourth, alien invasion. All of them bathed in fear. And that was Werner von Braun stated that in 1974 in an interview. And he said, all of which are lies. So remember the declassified document that they came in peace? Boom. So we talked about Law 1. And I found this funny. I was just looking at declassified documents. Another interesting figure was Robert F. Kennedy, who wrote a document on May 9th, 1968 to the publisher of Saucer News. In the first paragraph, he acknowledged to him that he was a card-carrying member. But 30 days later, he was dead. Carter was told he did not have a security clearance high enough to get information what the CIA had. Daddy Bush is the one who told him that. He was the head of the CIA. And then, you know, it's funny because luckily I love David Wilcock because, you know, they have To the Stars Academy, which is an organization that's fundraising. You can go on now. And Tom DeLong, who used to be at Blink 182, is all with that. Sad thing is that you never know who to trust. Because one of their recent news things was debunked as a, you know, balloon. And then again, you look at all the people who are part of that, and they're all tied to, you know, because they're former positions of Lockheed Martin, Boeing, things like that. CIA. Now, I'm not saying that it's not, but it, you know, legit. It's just, it's again. Remember, seek that which resonates with you. So, take away, again, 2 paths to follow. Love or fear. The choice is always yours. And if it's not, it's only because you gave it away. All right? The one thing the Creator did was gave us free choice as humans. Also know that you're a brave enough entity to want to come down here. When you look at this life on the spectrum of eternal, someone and I was talking yesterday, it's like going to a drive-in movie. Sometimes there's parts of the movie that are good. Sometimes they're not, but it's all entertainment. All right, so don't take things so serious. Another thing is a spiritual entity with divine heritage. I mean, if you truly believe you're a part of the one, then you have divine heritage. Know that there's nothing to fear. Nothing. Conservation of energy already shown that if you don't believe in that there's a life, well, then you don't understand. The science has shown, even though they won't put it in terms of, oh yeah, there's life after death. But they've shown you that energy can't be destroyed. So there's nothing to fear. But as back in the day they'd say, the man's going to make you fear something, right? But not when there's more of us who are consciously aware there's nothing to fear. Because it only takes a few to change many. But you have to start with yourself. All living things, all come from one source. All living things are energy. I had a smile on my GoPro. So we're all fractals. And then, this is just to show you there's some cool photos. I figured, you know what? There's going to be someone out there, but this is just me always what-ifing the slide. Because I spent 21 years in the military, retired lieutenant colonel, so I've done hundreds of briefs. The bad thing is that now that I'm not, I still have the mindset that I what-if every question that could possibly be answered, and I don't finish till the night before. So I had to throw some photos because somebody said, what about this photo? So I just threw some out. Hey, that first one, that's like the oldest one ever done, 1870. Didn't even know what the hell a flying saucer was in 1870, but there's something in the sky. We didn't have planes in 1870, but, I know how they got, I don't know how they got it. But these are some that weren't debunked. This is, my son, he's 21, so of course he starts drilling me about the Battle of LA, and I'm like, okay, Nick, you're missing my point, brother. I'm talking spiritual, that we're all one, nothing to fear. He's drilling me about, well, they came in and we had a war, So, and of course, those who know me know it's real easy for me to get off track. Drives my wife crazy, because then I'll start researching the Battle of LA, and I'll give you a big brief on the Battle of LA, and it has nothing to do with anything. But you know what? Oh, this really got me. This is like a 1656 coin right there. It's got a freaking UFO on it. It's not like I'm from New York. I'm not. I probably have it's like a country slang New York.
What is that thing on the bottom left? Is that a Sumerian thing?
Yeah, I had those Sumerians, because without the Sumerians, we have plenty of stuff showing you that there's stuff that flies. But yet, many of us don't believe. And if we do believe, many of us think they're the enemy. Just like 400 years ago, the earth was flat. And there's still some around today that think it's flat. You know what? It can be flat, square, it doesn't really matter, does it? Another thing quantum physics talks about, particles, right? And if you're not looking at the particle, the only time particles like the stationary is what you want is when you put your attention to it. Something like that. I'm not a quantum physicist, so I asked you, is your bathroom real? Because you're not looking at it right now. In the theory of quantum physics, nothing is solid. Nothing. Not even what you're sitting on. I get excited. I can't help it. And so...
Solid enough. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have to go there.
Solid enough to hold me. Still matters.
Yes.
What's it gonna take to get the U.S. on that list?
Just for you.
What do you think?
Well, another thing Dr. Greer is really good at is in 1992, he briefed CIA Director Woosley. I love Dr. Greer because he doesn't hide behind sources. He tells you who the hell he briefed. He briefed the CIA Director Woosley, who was director for Clinton, and was asked, why don't the president and I know about this? He said, exactly. Remember Rumsfeld And like, 08 came out and said there was like $25 trillion that the Pentagon cannot account for.
Wasn't that right before 9/11?
About trillion, I don't know. But here's my point. And it's not a conspiracy. There are many reasons why our Congress doesn't know. See, Snowden became a traitor in the government's eyes because he released information that Congress and the president was aware of. Greer is their informant because they're not aware. So there literally is a cabal system, a darker, higher being of group that funds a lot of stuff. So honestly, even though we all think that everyone in government thinks, they don't. You know, granted, now they can go look at declassified documents. You know, Hoover would have got the FBI involved if it wasn't for the military's engagement. You know, he had a file on everybody and everything. But not on UFOs because he couldn't, because the military grabbed it. And so what it would take is it's just, you keep pushing and people coming and aware that, you know what, we can't all be fooled. Where there's smoke, there is fire. All right, if this was only a couple countries with a couple, like, you know, flying tin can lids, you know, that's a hoax. But it's worldwide, so you can't say everyone's a hoax. And you know what, until, you know, we can just start believing. And then eventually, well, but you know, the government's going to be the government. The only thing Dr. Greer does mention that if the U.S. doesn't come online soon, when disclosure happens, then the U.S. becomes like we would see as a third world country today. Because the secrecy behind it, again, it's not love, it's not peace. We try to weaponize everything. And how do we keep our people in line? Fear. But you are home of the brave land of the, I don't even remember, 21 years, I can't remember the kind of, land of the brave, home of the free.
Something like that.
Exactly. So let's be brave and always know that freedom is within. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have some friends that live in Hawaii and
Mhm.
they experienced the missile warning and and of course that happened, what, like 10 days later in
Yep.
Japan as well. So there is some belief on the islands that there are extraterrestrials involved in it, like shooting it down to prevent it from
Oh,
hitting.
no, there would be. Again, I believe that the ones that are so embodied is here to help us evolve consciously. You know, there's many theories. There's one, I think the Sumerian Lemurian stepped in the 70s, that the Earth, you ever heard of the Mandela effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the Earth could have, you know, actually been destroyed in the 70s by a solar flare. Oh, and the largest solar flare to date at that moment ever caught on record was in 1947. Just thought of that. And so, but the Mandela effect took effect, and so we don't remember anything. So yeah, I do believe that they're here to help us because they see us as them. We are one. We may appear different, but remember, this is just a shell. It's not who we are. You know, and that's like when you ask somebody, you know, who are you? And they're like, well, I'm so-and-so, I do this and that. And again, it's not who they are, it's what they do. Or it's a title, or it's this. We're all spiritual entities having a human experience. And so it could be true.
And and this is just something we have all tossed around, the idea of jumping timelines at that point.
That, who did?
At that moment, like with the missiles,
Oh,
jumping timelines at that point too.
to make it not happen?
Yeah.
Did you ever see The Travelers on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that. Walk-ins, but they're going to die, but to change things. So I would never say that that's not impossible. I do know another thing Dr. Greer teaches, and I got this, I'm learning it, is how to make contact. So they'll go out in these, you know, in Colorado, and they did it on Easter Island. There's a meditation, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But they actually asked, and this is all documented, they actually asked to show something, right? And within just days, guess what happened? what is now known famously as the lights over Phoenix. Which now even the, you know, the governor of Phoenix come out at that time, at first it was a joke, but he's come out and said they can't.
After he.
Right. And so, you know, that's another reason I like Doug Rivers, because of all of them, he sees it as a spiritual thing. Because it's not a us and them, it's a we. You know, and that was the whole reason. I used the word alien just to draw you in here. Because we're all interdimensional.